On behalf of the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum and Religions for Peace, we welcome you all to this symposium on youth engagement with religion and faith in the 21st century that is being organized in collaboration with Statistical, Economic, and Social Research and Training Center for Islamic Countries, the International Islamic Fair Academy, the Research Center for Islamic History, Art, and Culture, the Berkeley Center for Religion, Peace, and World Affairs, Georgetown University, the Institute of Human Rights and Peace Studies, Mahidol University, Office of Religious Life, Princeton University, and the Pontifical and Royal University of Santo Tomas. My name is Christian Kazadi Lupemba, and I serve as the chairperson of the Interfaith Youth Network of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and I will be one of the masters of ceremony, along with Mrs. Fatma Noor Senja.
Thank you. Good afternoon from Istanbul. I'm Fatma Noor Senjan from Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, and I would like to start with a warm thank to each and every one of you for being here with us today. And we are very pleased to be able to welcome you all. Before we start, let us take a moment of silence to pray, meditate, and reflect in each of our own way. Okay, I think we shall start now. Peace be upon you, as well as the mercy of God and his blessings. Firstly, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our partner, Religions for Peace, and all of our contributors who generously helped us to come together for making this event a success. We couldn't have done it without you. And countless studies attempted to explore the complex relationship between youth and religion in the modern world. And the place of youth is in cultural dynamics is well recognized today. However, youth engagement in religious structures as a big portion of culture and tradition has begun to fade in most parts of the world. Well, as an outcome of mutual recognition of the powerful role of the youth to the peace-building processes in different parts of the world, and the need for a sophisticated exploration of the youth engagement with religion and faith, today we gathered here under the symposium Youth Engagement with Religion and Faith in the 21st Century. The symposium will include keynote addresses, panel presentations, creative contributions, and the anticipated outcome of concrete recommendations. Well, today it's an honor and pleasure to welcome our esteemed guests, Her Excellency Professor Azza Karam, the Secretary General of Religions for Peace, and His Excellency Mr. Taha Ayhan, the President of the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, to deliver their welcoming remarks. Your Excellency, Professor Karam, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to each and all of you. May peace be with you now and always. It is a great privilege, pleasure, source of delight, to be honest with you, to be able to be here with you today. I want to pay special tribute to Mr. Taha Ayhan and the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum for reaching out to Religions for Peace at the height of the COVID lockdown in New York. Mr. Taha, I hope, remembers his visit to us in New York, when we had the distinct pleasure of also signing a memorandum of understanding between our two organizations. At that time, Mr. Taha expressed this idea. This was his vision. This is an outcome of his vision, whereupon he spoke about the value, obviously, and the need to address issues relevant to youth, but not only to speak about youth, but to speak with youth and to come together about addressing this nexus of youth, faith in our current contexts. The Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum has a long legacy and a distinguished legacy of bringing together and responding to the member organizations of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the member states, and addressing many of their most contemporary, most vital youth-related issues and dynamics. So we have a distinct privilege as Religions for Peace to partner with this distinct organization. Because we are committed to a plurality of voices, of experiences, of truths and religions, we reached out immediately to some of our longest standing partners in this space. And I'm therefore delighted to be able to see Professor Dr. Catherine Marshall from Georgetown University's Berkeley Center, and also the Executive Director of the World Faith Development Dialogue. I hope that Catherine will allow me to say that one of the first leading lights within academia that has continued to be a mentor and a space of learning for all of us interested in that nexus between religion and many spheres of life is indeed the World Faith Development Dialogue, which is currently hosted by Georgetown University. With her in particular, we bring the academic and the practitioner sides of engagement at the multilateral level together. I'm also delighted to welcome Dean Dr. Matthew Weiner from Princeton University, Office of Religion and Public Life, who I've had the distinct pleasure and privilege of working with many, many years ago. Also to co-edit a special series looking at the intersection between religion and the United Nations system as a whole, many, many years ago. So it's a space, I believe, where some of what even I, as a Religions for Peace servant, can bring together some of our oldest partners outside of the religious spaces, together with some of our most established and luminary partners in the Religions for Peace space. And in this regard, I want to pay also a special tribute to Professor Sufatmet and to Christian Lupemba. Professor Sufatmet brings with her Mahidol University, which is a key partner for us, intellectual partner, but also multi-religious engagement partner. So we're delighted to be able to have her expertise and her office represented. I would be remiss if I don't also mention very, very clearly that the Pontifical University in the Philippines is a wonderful new partner for us to be able to engage with. I think the point here is that the multiplicity of partners who have come around this table to reflect for some moments on this intersection between youth engagement, and religion and faith in this century, the group of partners themselves speaks a great deal to one of the many changes that we are seeing happen, that Religions for Peace in particular is deeply committed to as a way of life, as a manner of living. Religions for Peace has a legacy of over 50 years of advancing common action among the world's religious community. Why? For a comprehensive, holistic, and sustainable peace. What we also refer to, as we borrow the terminology of the International Peace Academy and the international dynamics, as positive peace. In other words, not simply, it goes beyond the absence of conflict. It goes beyond a negotiation or a mediation of a conflict, but peace as in human dignity reigning supreme. Peace as in every aspect of not just basic needs, but all human needs, all human rights being observed, being realized. That kind of peace is what Religions for Peace is committed to. The Religions for Peace movement through its 90 national and 6 regional interreligious councils, together with the Women of Faith networks, the interreligious youth networks, engages in these key issues of common concern. In 2019, the agreement was to ensure that there was a key space for aligning the strategic priorities of this 50-year-old, half a century-year-old movement, aligning the strategic priorities it had been working with its roots as a movement, which is the alignment with the United Nations system's own commitment to peace and security, human rights, and sustainable development. And most specifically, aligning the strategic goals and objectives of Religions for Peace with the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. This alignment is important, not because the Sustainable Development Goals agenda is a nice buzzword, but it is important because 193 governments came together to affirm, to confirm, and to commit to a global agenda that they also hold one another and themselves accountable to. And this global agenda, which encompasses peace and security, which encompasses and is built on the objects of human rights, and which encompasses and is built towards the realization of sustainable human development, this is the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. This is the agenda that the religious leaders that are very much the members of Religions for Peace come together to help realize. I should mention that very often many people cannot understand the structure of Religions for Peace because we are so vast and we claim to represent the world's religious communities, which is a very massive claim. So I try to simplify a little bit who Religions for Peace is. And I say, just as you see governments who are members of the United Nations, think of the religious institutions and religious communities of the world as the members of Religions for Peace. Just as governments compose the board and the General Assembly of the United Nations, religious institutions and faith communities represent the Assembly of Religions for Peace. We recognize that multi-religious efforts can be more powerful, more inclusive, and more efficient than the efforts of individual religions acting alone. In other words, we acknowledge that religions are a powerful social, economic, and political, and above all, emotional power. And as we acknowledge that, we also acknowledge that when religions come together to work together, that is a quintessential presence and participation of and with the divine energy that stimulates so many of us. So recognizing the energy and commitment, especially of youth leaders all over the world, to advance the mission of multi-religious cooperation for comprehensive and holistic peace, Religions for Peace established the Global Interfaith Youth Network in its 2006 World Youth Assembly, which took place in that time in Hiroshima, Japan. Since its establishment, the role of youth in forging and guiding the Religions for Peace global engagement of religious communities and their leaders has expanded extensively. Youth leaders today stand at the forefront of religious engagement with critical areas of common concern. Again, these are the common areas of concern for Religions for Peace strategic priorities. It is therefore with incredible gratitude that we come together to assess these intersections between religion, youth engagement, youth participation, youth leadership, and areas such as interreligious education, peace building, building just, peaceful, inclusive societies, nurturing and sustaining an environment common to us all without which we would not exist, but also areas related to our public health concerns and considerations, areas related to freedom of thought, conscience, and belief. These are the areas in which we would like to learn from our youth leaders, as well as to share and connect multi-generationally, cross different generations with one another. So this is an emphasis and a focus on youth, but it is also an opportunity to hear those intersectionalities between youth and different generational perspectives on that which keeps this world, hopefully, moving towards a peaceful agenda. I'm hoping that we will continue to learn from one another in the next few hours that we have the privilege of sharing with one another. As you engage and as you listen, I beg you to consider that we were actually constrained by the fact that when we asked for applications for different presentations, we were inundated with some of the most amazing intellectual output. And so much so, in fact, that we realized we could not possibly provide a platform in 3 hours for that wealth of information and intellectual output. So we decided, even though we had not originally planned this, we decided that it was very, very important to focus on the bulk of what we received and to try to consider together as organizers, inshallah, a part 2 to this. This was not meant to be 2 parts. This was meant to be one event. But because we want to honor the plethora of input, remarkable intellectual wisdom that was shared, we realized we are going to have to consider a part 2, and that this time we should focus on the bulk of what we received, which was on Muslim and Christian perspectives and contexts. But we are engaging our moderators, our thought leaders, to be with us here today, yourselves, obviously, from different religious perspectives. We do need to focus on those particular presentations that were the majority from the Muslim and the Christian, but we are committed to taking forward the discussions on the Buddhist and the Hindu, the Jain, the Sikh, the Baha'i, the Jewish, every single other perspective. And we will prepare better for this next time when you are gracious enough to share that wealth of information with us. So bear with us for this session. And do encourage us to continue to make sure that we can continue to honor the wealth of intellectual input that you have gifted us with for this session today. So I wish to give you a specific and sincere thanks. I also want to make sure that you realize that we look at women and youth, and women who are youth and youth who are women, because that happens too. We don't mean to categorize, but we look at leadership not only as ordainment in the religious world. Because of the vast outreach of the world of faith, we understand a very age-old wisdom that leadership is not a title, it is not a position. Leadership is a form of service, and those who serve in different ways, others, are some of the best leaders that our world has. We are looking in today's age, we are looking for political leadership, religious leadership, financial leadership, and thought leadership all the time. What I hope, at a very minimum, this particular conversation can help us understand is that leadership is there, it's here, it's you, it's right next door, on our left and on our right. It is those of you who are committed to serving one another in this space for the betterment of all of us, making no distinction between anyone based on gender, race, sexuality, nationality, that those of us prepared to serve and those of you prepared to serve and already with a legacy of service are amongst the best thought leaders that we could potentially have. So leadership defined as service and commitment to one another. That is what I hope we will be able to learn from each and every one of you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Professor Karam, for your kind words and truly inspiring speech. And now it's my honor to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Taha Ayhan, to provide his welcoming remarks. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fatma Hanım. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Salam to all, peace be upon you. Her Excellency Professor Azza Karam, the Secretary General of the Religions for Peace, His Excellency Professor Mustafa Sanabi, Secretary General of the International Islamic Fiqh Academy, His Excellency Mr. Nabil Davur Bey, Secretary General of the CESRIC, His Excellency Professor Mahmoud Al-Kılıç, the Director General of the IRSICA, the Berkeley Center for Religion, Peace and World Affairs at Georgetown University, Institute of Human Rights and Peace Studies, Mahidol University, Harvard Divinity School of Theology and Religions, Yale Divinity School, Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, Pontifical and Royal University of Santo Tomas, Manila. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear professors, dear brothers and sisters, it's my great honor, pleasure, and happiness for me to be here today with you. with such an august house, with such a great people. Today is a special day for us all. Religions for Peace and the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum have joined efforts to produce a useful research analysis of trends of youth engagement through religion and faith in the 21st century. And the background story has been shared by Her Excellency Dr. Azza Kerem Hanım, and I'm very thankful for her supports and efforts for ICYF and for the youth of the whole world. And I don't have enough words in my vocabulary to thanks to her efforts and support to youth. And thank you very much again and again. It's indeed a wonderful occasion that brought us together for the sake of youth who continue to pursue solutions and play different roles in the betterment of communities, shape and feature with faith, knowledge, values, and leadership. This symposium on youth engagement through religions and faith in the 21st century allows all of us, all of our esteemed partners and contributors to take on active roles and engage further through sharing and their ideas and research work. We wish to organize such a great symposium in field, in person, physically, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all suffer globally, we have to organize it virtually. The ICYF, the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, highly appreciates the significance of its esteemed partnership, especially with the Religion for Peace institution, with CISIC, with International Fiqh Academy, with IRSICA, with Harvard Divinity School, with Yale Divinity School, with Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, with Mahidol University, and with all the contributors and partners who have participated to this symposium, as well as many other contributors who are investing in youth and their needs in the OIC region, guided by the OIC Youth Strategy of the 4th Islamic Conference of Youth and Sports Ministers in 2018. Dear distinguished guests, according to the CESRIC reports, OIC member states hosting 1.3 billion of our communities worldwide who are aged between 15 to 24. By 2030, the OIC region, 56 countries, will be home to 30.9% of the whole youth in the world. This will provide an extraordinary advantage to development and also to resolving existing conflicts, combating racism and Islamophobia in a world heavily affected by political unrest and conflicts. The condition of youth in the OIC region reflect many problems and challenges, most notably those related to education, economic standing, migration, brain drain, limited civic and political participation, violence, malnutrition, and limited access to health care, and extremism and deviant political rhetoric. According to the United Nations reports, unfortunately, the OIC region is hosting 80% of all conflicts and clashes in the international level. So while we're talking about 31% of the whole youth of the whole world, we are also talking about the most vulnerable and most affected part of the youth population. These issues are further worsened for young people, especially in less developed part of the OIC region, afflicted by persistent conflicts and wars, undermining the well-being of youth to a greater extent with far-reaching consequences. 58% of the OIC countries only have a mental health policy. This situation is one of our concerns and needs to be urgently addressed, especially looking at the wars and conflict conditions young people continue to face in the region. The OIC region found itself more challenged with the permanent exposure to youth radicalism and extremism in the difficult times. This may even rise dramatically in the post-COVID-19 era. Not only in the context of the OIC affected, today the world has ever been more affected by global challenges such as conflicts, extremism, terrorist attacks, forced migration, global environmental and humanitarian crisis, rising mistrust among nations, tensions over trade, climate crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, and its far-reaching consequences on the economic, social, and political life of our communities. As the biggest political intergovernmental organization, which is based on a religion and belief, OIC has a unique importance and strategical advantages. So we want to take the religion and belief from the strategical point of view in this symposium as the ICYF and all the partners. Dear ladies and gentlemen, many of today's world conflicts have their roots in the inability to sustain religious and cultural diversity, in addition to religious misunderstanding and intolerance, as well as the use of religious for fanatical agendas. Also, fear and ignorance are the roots of prejudices, marginalization, and intolerance. For that, people need to be educated on others, their cultures, stories, religion, beliefs, history, and civilization. Education must play its role in the positive presence of religious diversity. This calls for attention on many internet platforms that feed dark images of others' hatred, violence, and inflame extremism and inflame the xenophobia. Hatred is a threat to our communities and global village. It is time for all religions and non-religious institutions and establishments to standing against all forms of religious hatred, persecution, discrimination, racism, and incitements. Politicians, religious leaders, media, and civil society need to carry out the responsibility to promote societal understanding, harmony, and peaceful coexistence. It is time to rethink our collective approaches to social harmony, coexistence, and peace, and establish norms for better religious and cultural interactions of communities. We also need to develop broad agreements on the religious, cultural, linguistic, and educational rights of people and communities, especially with regards to values like respect, recognition, respect, coexistence, cooperation, and tolerance. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as a response to the current challenges and informed by a shared Islamic heritage, culture, and universal values, Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, ICYF, is committed to building youth capacity through strategies, policy frameworks, programs, and projects, holistic education, capacity building, enhancing their intellectual leadership, promoting their scientific and technological innovation, entrepreneurship, media, and communication, in addition to the strengthening their civic engagement, raising their awareness, and tackling issues of unemployment, health, and wellness, limited opportunities, which are currently a big problem in the OIC region, and also tackling the Islamophobia, extremism, racism, and social exclusion. We focus on youth's positive roles in building their communities' development and their effective contributions to their inter- and intra-communities understanding, respect, diversity, peace, and rights. To address issues of social cohesion, the welfare of communities, and to resolve the many problems of misunderstanding and exclusion, ICYF works closely with its stakeholders to support and promote the positive role of youth in the economic, social, and cultural and political processes, and to enhance the role of Muslim communities as a partner for the peace and prosperity of the human family. We are honored to work for youth and with youth around the OIC geography and beyond to better know their stories, needs, and aspirations, and to be dedicated to developing strategies and projects to enhance their potentials and capabilities. Youth learn significantly from experience and from their peers and mentors on how to use their faith for wisdom, insights, and strength for their interpersonal and problem-solving skills, and to become responsible agents and stewards in their respective communities and societies. Youth education, empowerment, and engagement improve their own conditions, also reinforces human rights, understanding, cooperation, and dignity, and progress for all. Engaging youth in learning and production of solutions proved not only helpful to find effective answers to pressing issues, but also helped prepare them as promising leaders and change makers and policymakers. In ICYF, we believe that youth empowerment and development require access to health services and opportunities. Notably, however, the mental health of young people is highly essential to their well-being, inclusion, empowerment, engagement, and balanced contribution. And we see that there is a huge and powerful link between religious attitude and mental health. As an OIC-affiliated institution, ICYF continues to implement different tailored programs and projects of education, training, and empowerment, such as Model OIC Clubs, Young Business Hub for Entrepreneurships, Intellectual Muslim Intellectual Forums, Intellectual Islamic Heritage, Leadership of Young Leaders Summit, media training, volunteering training, and training youth activists, youth institutions to encounter Islamophobia. These are only some titles from our programs. We also take the part in the United Nations initiatives and contribute to SDGs and environmental development. And during the COVID-19 era, and in order to face the new realities of the post-COVID-19 era, we have adjusted our work style so as to serve youth much better while acknowledging youth as a key partner in the sustainable development of communities and prosperity of human family. We have delivered several programs, including the Diplomacy Academy and volunteerism training, in addition to any special edition webinars bringing together hundreds of young people with diplomas, ministers, and high-level decision makers on policy issues. We have also launched the Intellectual Islamic Heritage Program, Model OIC program, and other programs based on the need to respond to questions of youth raises. We also continue to organize several contests on essays, arts, photography, films, and media training to highlight youth initiatives and share their success stories. Dear distinguished guests, before I conclude, allow me to assure you that the Islamic Cooperation Forum is always ready and willing to work with any institutions committed to fostering cultures of tolerance, mutual respect, solidarity, cohesion, and cooperation. United, we will support development and sustainability, and together we will stand against prejudice, discrimination, exclusion, and racism. I also seize this golden opportunity to call on youth organizations, universities, and international organizations to place efforts towards increased inclusion, openness, transparency, and cooperation. And more importantly, understanding the necessities of youth and young people. I pray to Allah Almighty, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to grant us success in our service of youth and the human family, both sincerely and effectively. I hope this program will bring so many barakah and enjoyments, and also we will enjoy the fruits of this symposium, I hope. Following this program and its far-reaching effects, I'm confident that we will accomplish fantastic work. Such cooperation will undoubtedly add value to building youth capital, deals, and contribution to a more religious understanding, moderation, and peace. And also it will add a great contribution to the coexistence and cohabitation for young people in all around the world. Last, I would like to extend my most profound appreciation once again to Religions for Peace institution and all partners, and also namely Dr. Azza Kerem Hanım, who made this program possible. I wish the researchers and contributors all the best in their presentations. We look forward to learning about the various perspectives, insights, and recommendations on how to go about more youth engagements through faith and among faith communities. I thank you all for your kind attention and patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your warm welcome and overall support to this symposium. Now, I would like to invite our first keynote speaker of today, Professor Dr. Priyankar Upadhyaya, UNESCO Chair Professor, Banaras Hindu University, and Global Fellow, Peace Research Institute, to deliver his speech. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As we say in Hindi, Dhanyavad, Shanti. First of all, please accept our greetings from the holy city of Varanasi, which I always look at as an epitome of interreligious, interfaith solidarity, in the sense that though it is it's the highest place, it's the most sacred place of Hindus, but visualize this, that this also has attracted a very large number of people from other religions, so much so that many of us, many anthropologists, sociologists call it a gathering place of all religions. Over 3,000 temples, Hindu temples, and over 1,500 Muslim mosques, grand churches. And mind you, this is where Buddha attained his knowledge, enlightenment he delivered. Why I'm saying this is an idea that the quest that we have is wonderful. It's very timely, very topical, and I congratulate all the organizers, all the wonderful partners we have here, is to sit together and look for the complex questions that we have about youth participation. What today's youth across culture thinks about religion and faith. Are they simply prone to a very negative kind of religious indoctrination, or they are able to look at the spiritual dimension of it? And that is where I think my sense is that we have to build up on this inter-religious, intercultural experiences. As Dr. Azza Karam said very wisely, that today there could be a focus on just a couple of main religions, the participants. But next time we should have all religions coming together. And I tell you, it will be so easy to find a common space. or so easy to find consensus when we sit together, and that we have seen in the past. I mean, when I look at the history of Indian subcontinent, notwithstanding the aberrations and the contradictions, but long history of syncretic culture, composite culture, people sitting together, learning from each other. I mean, and that tradition still follows. I always tell myself, it's not an age to tell anyone else, that we have to trust and believe in young people. They are not as vulnerable and as prone to negativity as we sometimes think, associate very easily across religion and cultures to terrorism, to, provocation. In my own city, or not only in my own city, but in our subcontinent, we have so many age-old traditions of young people contributing to peace building through religion-based thinking, ideology across religions. I mean, this is a land, I don't know, maybe some of us would know, that today in India at large and in many parts of the world, people adore and admire Kabir Das. Kabir, this is a man who was both Hindu and Muslim, in the sense that he was probably born to a Hindu parent and was raised by Muslims. And these Kabir Panthis still attract a very large number of young people, not those young people who just came from nowhere, but from very educated and enlightened people. Because what he preached today, his teachings have really made a lot of impact even today. Look at the continuation of youth clubs. These youth clubs, for example, in our culture, basically are rooted in different cultures. But they get together, the young people get together across religions to participate in religious traditions and rituals. And that is where the peace begins. So what I think, and this point was very well signaled and pointed out in the initial expressions, that there is no single way to peace. There is no single way to understand how youth could really work together. There are many ways in which peace can be expressed, and youth and the involvement of young people to different cultural traditions can be brought together if we have these possibilities of bringing together. Music could be one space. I mean, in my culture and in all cultures, I mean, the Sufi tradition, Bhakti tradition, these are still very live movements across the subcontinent, notwithstanding the rivalry the countries might have in the region or elsewhere. But music brings them together. In my own city, we have musical gatherings, cultural gatherings, which cut across Muslims, Hindu, Buddhist, everybody. And that is where you find young people actually playing a role that is very, very inspiring, in the sense they are the people. And I also believe that probably the role of social media, which is often exercised in such conferences and workshops, if you look at it, you can find many good stories, many podcasts, many filmmakers, many musicians. They have made their own network, and they are doing their bit to bring about intercultural peace and harmony. So I think where internationally we have come to believe that youth has enormous potentials. I mean, this was a very stark realization and recognition by UNSCR 2050 resolution, Youth, Peace and Security. But I think it's very important, and I think this is very well highlighted in the synopsis of, or in the programmatic document circulated, that we need to understand young people better. We need to raise good questions about what exactly how do they engage with the spiritualism? How do they relate to religion? Or is it that the so-called science and technology is making them all secular? So these are the questions which require more and more symposia, more and more efforts on our part to raise these questions, and there'll be no easy answers. There will be answers which will be culturally very diverse, which will be sort of, it'll take us time to bring them together, to grasp these ideas together. So personally, it's my dream come true to join with such wonderful people around from across cultures, across religions, and especially focus on a very empowering theme of youth engagement in 21st century. And not simply peace today is all about SDGs. I mean, today's peace is not simply the absence of war or violence. It is about women, it's about children, it's about everything. So thank you very much for this honor and this opportunity. And I hope that from now on, I will be a regular, at least if not speaker, listener to the great ideas, and look forward to young people trying to answer these questions, and more importantly, to raise another set of good questions. How can we make a difference in the way things are? So thank you very much, and namaskar once again.
Thank you, Doctor, for this amazing speech. I believe, starting from myself, it encouraged us all to look at the world from a different point of view. And inshallah, we can do that. And now, I would like to invite Dr. Catherine Marshall from Berkeley Center of Religion, Peace, and World Affairs, Georgetown University, to deliver her speech. Dr. Catherine, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm actually speaking from Washington, D.C. It's a great honor to be part of this effort, this very carefully constructed effort, and I'm grateful to my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Karam, for including me, and Deepika Singh and other colleagues. In my long life, and I'm an elder, by the way, very much an elder, I remember time and time again hearing in meetings the comment, youth is the future, so we need to listen to youth. And then the young people will come back forcefully saying, no, we are the present. And I have several challenges in the few minutes today, which I hope will be a continuing conversation. So I think the first is that we're facing a challenge of moving from rhetoric to reality. That the comment that youth are important, we love youth, they have energy, they understand new technologies, et cetera, is so common, but effective mechanisms to engage youth across the entire SDG spectrum of 17 goals, 169 targets. I think we could easily find in the global agendas countless, innumerable areas where youth are involved, are engaged, should be involved, but we have a large gap between this rhetoric and what actually happens, who is heard. So that, I think, is challenge number one. Challenge number two, I think, was alluded to by Dr. Karam in her opening statement, that there are, of course, many youth, and there are so many ideas and so many practical initiatives that navigating them and setting priorities is obviously very difficult. And it is one of the excuses that is given for why youth voices may not be heard, or maybe they're primarily in a cosmetic role. So I see this as an opportunity to sharpen the list of areas and the kinds of examples where purposeful, deliberate, creative youth engagement has really made a difference. And I would add to that another complexity, which is that youth voices are so diverse, and therefore sort of seeing who is heard, who is listened to, who the partnerships extend to, is a global challenge that is not only related to religion. I think the religion issue is particularly complex in part because so many of us have multiple identities. So for some, the religious affiliation may be the most important thing in their life, whereas for others, it's a complex integrated part. So I think sort of defining these agendas, thinking about these, the challenges together as well as individually in each setting is very important. The third challenge that I would highlight is that we are living in an extraordinary time with the COVID pandemic and what is described in some situations as a as a Kairos moment. So what does a Kairos moment mean? It's an opportunity, a moment of grace and opportunity. One of my fears at this point is that as the COVID storm passes on, that we will basically muddle through, that there will be cosmetic changes. But I think all of us should see this as a historic moment when we can put the major issues on the table and really think of what kinds of change, of radical change, we can look at as we move forward. Now, I took on the same challenge that all of you had, which was to write a paper. And given my age, I took the challenge with a younger colleague of the millennium generation. And as we continue to develop this paper, as we look forward, one of my hopes is that she will challenge me, as you will challenge me, to see the blind spots, to look for the opportunities, and really to have what is our ideal, which is an intergenerational discussion and an intergenerational dialogue. So I think that that's what we're all hoping and looking for, even as we recognize why the challenge is so much related to rhetoric and why it's so rare to see more than token youth voices in so many of the global as well as national and local platforms, even as many young people have taken action in their own hands and are doing things, but they may not be known and they may not be recognized. So looking at the challenge of religion, I think the fact that there are these networks of youth and women and that every discussion about inclusion has youth and women on the list, I think that we do need to spend some time looking at the challenges, some of which I have alluded to. But why is religion so distinctive? And I think it is in part first of all, some of the patriarchal structures, let's be very clear, are quite ingrained within many religious institutions. So we do get to the challenge that we were just hearing of what is the spiritual, what is the essence? Why do people care about their religion? As someone said to me, everyone has faith. The question is what you have faith in and what that faith means. What kind of world do you want to create? But I spend time, and Dr. Karam actually will be very much part of this, in preparing for the summit of the G20, the group of 20 most powerful actors in the world, and essentially asking what should be the youth role. So with the G20, it is the global agenda, and our question is, where does religion fit? What is the religious dimension? And I do want to put two different challenges and hypotheses that I have that I hope will also be important for you. To me, in today's world, I think that the single area where the voices of religious traditions and leaders need to be powerful is in pointing to and caring about the most vulnerable in the world. I think that is an essential part of religion: compassion, empathy, the people who are forgotten, the people at the end of the road. Just a couple of days ago, a large report came out, the Lancet article, which is pointing to the fact that somewhere between 1 million and 2 million children in the world have lost their caregivers. The mental health issues that have been alluded to. So clearly that is an important part, to my mind, of what Religions for Peace, your networks, our personal caring highlights the need to focus very much on those who are excluded, those who are left behind. But at the same time, what youth bring is often the most positive and creative vision of the future, with the arts, with new kinds of education, new kinds of inclusion, new kinds of plural societies. So a very positive vision. So we have both this prophetic role of highlighting that that you must never forget the refugees. You must never forget those who are hungry, who don't have water, the children who've lost their parents. And you can do something about that. But at the same time, building towards a much brighter, more dynamic future where people can savor life, living much longer lives, but really savor those lives. So with those challenges and hopes, I look forward to being part of this discussion as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Catherine, for this highly courageous speech, which I'm sure expanded our visions greatly. And now my colleague, Mrs. Suleiman, will play the musical piece performed by spiritually inspired youth. So enjoy. panel sessions. So it is my pleasure to yield the floor to Dr. Fadila Green, the Senior Advisor, Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, to moderate the first panel named Youth Engagement with Religion and Faith. Dr. Fadila, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Fatma Noor, for this wonderful, beautiful start of yours. And I would like, in the very early beginning, to extend thank you to the President Taha Ayhan for this wonderful, actually, idea and the thread that will take us so far to tackle the issue of youth and faith. Special thanks to our inspirer, Dr. Azza Karam and her wonderful team. And more special thanks also to the ICYF beautiful and artistic team who brought all this gathering together. So today, driven and inspired by faith, the symposium on youth engagement through the religion and faith in the 21st century is indeed a wonderful occasion that brought us together today for the sake of youth who continue to give and achieve, and to seek sustainable solutions for their communities and nations. And we are here today to highlight as institutions to discuss youth engagement and to reflect on faith as a way of life, as Dr. Azza put it rightly, as a source of development and sustainability and prosperity, therefore a source for life, for humanity and peace for mankind, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam introduced faith to us. So that's why we are sharing with you as youth, and that's what our youth are up to, actually, in these difficult times. They prove today, and in these difficult times, that they are ready to put hands and minds together, to commit and to reach noble goals together. And I think to answer to one of the questions that Dr. Catherine was raising is about the mechanisms of doing it, of engaging youth. And ICYF is very good at mechanisms of engaging youth because we listen to youth and we make our programs as a reply to their needs and to their questions. And we are working actually to do more of this. We're also aware that the need to work with others is also the higher level or another level where we are reaching out to other institutions, faith institutions, international institutions, and we are doing it together. And that brings us together, and the strength is in the togetherness. So in this very short panel, I will be having with us today Ms. Tazeen Qureshi from the Economic and Social Research Department at the Statistical Economic and Social Research and Training Center for Islamic Countries, CESRIC. She is, the CESRIC is a subsidiary organ of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. Ms. Tazeen Qureshi is a researcher with master's degree in international relations from Qatar University and international relations from Qatar University. And she is specialized in gender policy, law, migration, governance, and social developments, among others. And she will speak to us a little bit from the perspective of our partner, dear partner, CESRIC, on youth engagement from CESRIC point of view. Ms. Tazeen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Fadila. It is a great pleasure for me to address the symposium. I hope all of you can hear me very clearly. I want to thank President Ayhan and ICYF for this, for organizing this symposium, and Dr. Azza Karam and Religions for Peace. What the two organizations have done is provided us with a platform, a very valuable platform, to discuss topics that have an impact on the developmental trajectory of young people around the world. And especially in this day and age, in 2021, discussing these topics is of like very vital relevance, given the regressive human development impacts that COVID has had on people around the world. I'm Tazeen Qureshi, as Dr. Fadila said, a researcher at CESRIC, and I am here with you today to highlight CESRIC's activities associated with youth. I'm just going to, oh, I was trying to share my screen, but it says it's disabled.
Yes, my dear, because it's a very short session, so let's.
Okay.
I think you've done so much, so please get us to the best of the basar of the session.
Okay, so as one of the earliest established subsidiary organs of the OIC, CESRIC's 3 core mandates are to undertake socioeconomic research, to collect and disseminate statistics, and conduct training and capacity building programs for the 57 OIC member states. Our activities contribute towards enhancing intra-OIC cooperation on a lot of different issues, but also issues related to young people. Our activities are largely related to socioeconomic development of youth. And I'm saying this here because even though religion and faith and youth engagement with topics like peace building and humanitarianism and environmentalism is very important and a very timely discussion, we do not directly engage with these topics, but the socioeconomic topics that we do work with, the developmental indicators and issues that we do research and work on, have direct impacts on these issues that we're discussing today. For example, we know through literature, through academic research, that things like the economic condition of a country can drive youth towards radicalism or extremism. Things like a lack of awareness or information, or let's say even something as simple as outdated curriculum can have great impact on how the youth in that country perceive, interpret religious teachings, how they embody it, and how they act on it. With that being said, I'm going to really, because I only have 5 minutes, so I'm really gonna hurry through this, is that CESRIC, in one of our core mandate areas, that's economic research, socioeconomic research, CESRIC produces various types of interdisciplinary research really to provide an in-depth understanding of the present state of youth across the OIC geography. It is through this evidence-based analysis that we can identify the needs and challenges of young people in OIC member states, and then we can formulate policies, programs, and initiatives to help improve the welfare of youth across the OIC countries. And in doing so, CESRIC, we work directly with the member states. We do not generally work with NGOs or civil society or private organizations. So we work with the ministries that are responsible for youth welfare and things like that. Our flagship report at CESRIC, which is related to youth, is our biennial State of Youth in OIC member countries report. In our very latest edition, the 2020 edition, which is available on our website, our report basically looked at how to enhance the economic participation of young people in OIC countries. We also have other reports that discuss topics that affect youth or intersect with youth. As we know, a lot of the social indicators that are widely used to inform policymaking are very intersectoral or intersectional in nature. For example, our report on family and the status of marriage in OIC countries, or women's development in OIC countries, they cover topics that are relevant to young people, young girls, etc. And then we also have specialized thematic reports, like our very recent report on the socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 pandemic in OIC countries, covers a lot of issues that are directly relevant to the development of young people. We complement our research efforts by serving as the main statistical hub for the OIC countries. CESRIC hosts the first and the only international official statistical database for OIC countries called the OIC Stat. Now, this database includes more than 750 indicators under 24 distinct categories, of which 40 are directly related to youth. Under our statistical capacity building program, we try to transfer and share our statistical expertise with national statistics offices in the member states, and organize training workshops which aim to enhance their basically technical capacities in collecting, categorizing, and analyzing data. For example, we have a gender statistics training and workshop program right now, which aims to get better gender disaggregated data from OIC member countries. And lastly, our training and capacity building mandate. Under that mandate, we provide young people with an opportunity to gain work experience and develop their skills through hands-on learning. CESRIC initiated the OIC intern program in 2017, And in 2018 and 19 alone, this program helped over 600 students in finding placements in different companies and institutions across the OIC member states. Another activity that CESRIC regularly conducts since 2017 is a training course for OIC junior diplomats. Through this course, the future generations of diplomats from all over the world and OIC countries are given an opportunity to enrich their knowledge on topics related to diplomacy, conflict resolution, and mediation. Along with all of these activities, we also host and partner with a number of OIC and international institutions to organize various sessions to empower young people. And we are also currently in the process of launching a dedicated program, capacity building program for social development, which covers a lot of topics that are of concern to young people around the OIC member states. Now, these are some of the various activities that we undertake to advance, enhance, and strengthen Muslim youth. And I think all of these activities, while they're not completely, let's say, in line with the thematic focus of this symposium, but they do make real life concrete impact on young people, and impact in terms of their socioeconomic circumstances, in terms of seeing how to make their education better, how to make their economic integration better, and how to improve their social participation, give them more political give them a political voice, give them more recognition in their societies. All of our policies are related to this. But we do it in a way, obviously, as the rules of diplomacy dictate, along with the OIC member states, keeping in line with our rules of engagement, keeping in line with not trying to, let's say, aggravate any of the actors or participants. Along with our partner institutions and sister organizations like ICYF, we are deeply committed to improving the well-being of young people across the OIC fora. And in fact, we will be utilizing the proceedings of this symposium in some form in our future publication as well. And I'm really excited by the prospect that platforms such as this symposium offer to conduct normative discussions and encourage dialogue about the engagement and potential of young people around the world. And I'm very heartened to see representation from a lot of developing countries, because that's where we need to focus on. That's where we need the data and research from. And I wish all of you the very best of luck for the next throughout this symposium. And thank you again.
Thank you very much, Tazim, for this beautiful presentation and for sharing with us who is CESRIC and what you do. That's important for our partners, that's important for our young people to get to know about your reports. And I'm sure they will go and search all the reports, and all the research of CESRIC is online and it's in PDF format. And you can reach out to CESRIC websites and find out a lot of information. In fact, I wanted really to share also that one big part or one very important part of the CESRIC report on youth that is co-organized or co-authored with the ICYF is that the faith is a big contributor to the well-being of youth. And that is actually a big reality or a big fact from the youth report from CESRIC. I will take another just 2 minutes or so to say a few things about the activities of ICYF in regards our contribution to the peacemaking, humanitarian, and environmental and environment as those three themes of this symposium. And ICYF efforts are continuous, including this symposium itself is actually a contribution to that line. So as I said in the beginning, in ICYF, we acknowledge the multi-level effort. That's why we are the Youth Cooperation Forum, and we are driven by the Islamic values, and we see it in our activities that are designed around promoting and driving young people to be inspired by their values of cooperation and solidarity and giving to humanity. We go around these values, and our activities actually can show us, we can see it in the art, in the initiatives of the youth, in their contributions. We see the faith, we see it coming up from them, and we see it very strong. For example, ICYF organized the first forum for youth in Islamic countries to combat extremism that took place on the 7th of February 2019. And in this program, we had representatives from all over the world, international and regional experiences, and best practices were shared, and most of the speakers were youth. In our Commonwealth Youth Dialogue Conference, also ICYF conducted with a few partners, including the Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The event provided a very good hub and diplomatic training, simulation sessions for resilience as a tool for peacemaking. Also, the Young OIC Young Volunteer Camp in Antalya was organized for youth, both males and females, in October 13, 2019, and 100 participants participated in the program, and it was also for volunteerism. Yes, so the Doha Volunteering and Humanitarian Camp that took place also from the 28th of October to the 6th of November 2019 was also a big event from ICYF and partners, and it was participation was from 86 people, youth from 53 member states. The program was on disaster management and humanitarian work. Our Heads Up High, the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum program on Islamophobia training from the period from the 24th to 26th, 2020, targeted the representatives from minorities, Muslim minorities who reside in Europe to tackle the trauma and fear related to Islamophobia and the impact of Islamophobia on the communities, on the well-being of this youth. And we had 32 participants selected from many, actually hundreds. And it was a very successful platform that actually led to the second platform that will take place on the 4th and the 5th of August 2021, which is the kickoff of the global youth action countering Islamophobia that's led by ICYF. And it's also in line with this, trying to spread the solidarity, cooperation, the values of coexistence among our youth. We also had the Baku International Volunteering Forum of Islamic countries in the period between the 26th and 29th February 2020 with the Ministry of the Public of Azerbaijan. And we had 5,922 applications, and we received only 70 out of them to build the capacity of volunteers. And these numbers tells you how much our young people are interested in the humanitarian work, and how much they are interested in volunteerism, and how much they are actually thirsty to serve humanity. Our online volunteering training program that took place from the 18th to 20 to the 31st May 2020 addressed the value, scope, and motivation of volunteering, knowing the impacts of volunteers' activities on young people. And also we had 622 applications. We took only 100 people, a capacity we couldn't take more, and we were from 54 OIC member states. And also from the themes of this online volunteering training camp, we include the faith perspective. Our second online volunteering training, Young Volunteering Fighting Against Addiction, also was a very successful platform that faith present, and we had 100 people, volunteers who participated from 40 states. And our resilience summit, our resilience.
Dr. Fadila, sorry to interrupt, but you should unmute yourself. I think we had a technical error.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Less than a minute, because I know we don't have the time. So we had also many humanitarian boot camps, solidarity against COVID, Ideathon challenge with Hamad bin Khalifa University. It was very successful program, and 543 applicants. This also speaks how much our young people are moving forward, wanting to serve humanity and serve their communities. And the Design Post-COVID Humanity also in November 2020 was a success story, because the program mainly organized in partnership also with Hamad bin Khalifa, and was an innovative, multiplex and blended educational space for our young people. And we had 229 applicants selected from 2000, and they had a very extensive training on that in that regard, and also the faith aspect was present. In conclusion, I would like to say that we are not looking to put the faith in any dish. It's always there. Our young people are moved and inspired, are driven by their faith from all over the world. OIC country is actually a region for Islam and for Christianity and Judaism and many other religions, and the coexistence is a culture. It's an original culture in this region. And ICYF, we are actually promoting what was already existing. We are doing the coexisting of what was already there. We are reviving our values and heritage for that purpose. Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and for the beautiful session from Ms. Fazin. Thank you for being with us today. And I give back the floor to Fatma Noor. Thank you again to all of you. I wish you all the best to the rest of the presenters, and I'm sure this platform would bring us great results. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fadila.
We are very happy that Religion for Peace and ICYF extended an invitation for Institute of Human Rights and Peace Studies, Mahidol University, to be the partner of this important symposium. And I'm honored to be your moderator for this session, Peace Building 1. We have another peace building as well for tomorrow, I guess. And after this, we have a sessions on environment and also humanitarianism, another two themes of this symposium. I'm not a youth myself, but in my work for Religion for Peace Thailand and at Mahidol University, I have engaged a lot with youth for conflict transformations in the southern part of Thailand, where we have conflict that right now going on for about 16 years and cost about 7,000 lives so far. So working with youth is such a joy. They bring to the table the new ideas, the creativity, and also the energy. So today in this session, we selected 5 presenters to air their thoughts, their insight, and also experience regarding youth, religions, and also peace building. Right? We have 5 presenters from 5 different countries, and this session we will divide into 2 parts. First, we will have a floor for them to present, and then later on we will have a Q&A session. So each presenter, you have 5 minutes to deliver, to give a brief self-introductions, and also to go through the key points of your presentation. And when the time, I have a timer here, and if I sound this singing bowl, it means your time is up and you need to wrap up your presentations in 30 seconds, right? So first in my list, I have Miss Nala Fahmy from she's a researcher at the Doha International Center for Religious Dialogue. So without any further ado, Miss Nala, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the kind introduction. I have a presentation here. Let me share the screen if it's possible. Yes, okay. Just quickly. All right. Firstly, I would really like to thank everybody here for organizing this, and also a special thanks to Hamad bin Khalifa University and the Doha International Center for Interfaith Dialogue, ICYF, and Religions for Peace for providing the platform. In the next 5 minutes, hopefully we'll be taking a look at the minds of some university students in Qatar and how they maintain their religious identity in the face of secularizing environments in some of the world's top-ranking higher education institutes in Qatar's education city. So getting straight to the study itself, it bases off of 3 questions. It asks, does the exposure of secular higher education shape or influence religious identity in emerging adults? and how does it do so? It asks also what the differences are in terms of their experience in higher education as well as secondary education. And it also seeks the significance of parental religiousness in the conception of the youth's Muslim identity. So the research design involved 9 students, which were interviewed from 3 higher education institutes, namely the College of Islamic Studies under Hamad bin Khalifa University, Georgetown University, and Weill Cornell Medical College. Now, all 3 of these institutions are secular. However, they engage with religion in different ways. In the case of the College of Islamic Studies, the object of study itself is religion, without claims to being a religious institution itself. Georgetown, on the other hand, is a secular Jesuit institution. It is also known to have the strongest program for liberal education in Education City, while also separating its Catholic heritage and values from its curriculum. The Weill Cornell Medical College, on the other hand, has very little to do with religion, except in the niche area of ethics. So taking a quick glimpse into the interview questions for context that were asked from the participants, they were asked what place does religion have in their lives and what relationship it has to them as a person. It asks how has there been an evolution in their Muslim identity from adolescence until the present time. Where do they feel most at ease in expressing their Muslim identity, and how comfortable they are to speak of religion in university versus family and friends outside of it. So I've gathered here 6 of the most striking responses that reflect themes of the study that it later concludes. We have a participant here who said, "Secondary school was the worst. It takes you away from religion. You are not allowed to think outside the box. You have to follow the rules." Another participant said, "I felt more connected to God at the end of my undergraduate. I realized it was my responsibility to educate myself on my religion." Another says, this participant particularly chose graphic designing. She says that the professor made us think about the meanings of things. I became such a better Muslim after that. I would incorporate Islamic perspectives in my projects. If I was in an Islamic university, I don't think I would be able to do such a project in the way that I had done. The next participant says here from Georgetown University that the theology class made me understand different religions and made me realize that a lot of religions overlap with what Islam teaches. It made me realize how Islam connects all of these religions. She also goes on to say, "At least I have a space to ask questions. I rarely questioned my religion before coming to Georgetown. Even if we questioned it, we had to turn it down because it would be seen as disrespectful to the religion." Interestingly, and the last quote from the participants here is that one says, "I worry that sometimes if I wasn't in class, that Islam would not be represented well. If I'm not there, who would answer on behalf of Islam? No one." The following themes emerged from all of the respondents' responses. You have that the secondary school was found to be the most turbulent for religious identity across all participants. Secular higher education institutes enhances the religious identity by providing freedom of thought, expression, and discussion. We also noticed that the cognitive dissonances were resolved using religion itself, and they didn't find a sort of contradiction within it. Another key element to the study was that the parental religiousness was found to be very important in religious socializing. Inward expressions of Muslim religious identities were also shown to be varying greatly. So why do we ask these questions today, and how are they useful? While the secular has been made out to be as an anti-religion concept in the literature, as well as in the present-day realities we see today, secular higher education institutes, particularly in Education City, should have theoretically led to a decrease in religious identity. The respondents instead benefited, leading them to take ownership of their identity. It seems to provide a safe space for religious questioning and exploration, while being nested in a culture that is steeped in religion in Qatar. These challenges and hurdles to their identity not only strengthen their expressions as Muslims, But religion also drove their motivations and propelled their endeavors instead of seeing religion as something backward or irrational. They maintain a better understanding of themselves in the face of stereotypes and Islamophobia. In that sense, it allowed them to engage with the world today meaningfully, bringing their whole religious selves in the work that they do to the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very time, very very time, really, I don't have to sound, but very insightful data from you, and then it give us a perspective into how the youth see the world as they relate with religion, right? And then if you have any question, the audience, you can drop into the chat box as well, so I will retrieve that later on. So for the next speaker, we have Mr. Jude Abdulliman from United States. So okay. So the screen is yours. Please kindly introduce yourself and also the key points of your presentation. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone here on the screen. I think there's a misconception in when it comes to where I'm from, and I'm seeing them representing me as from United States of America. I've heard I am from Nigeria. I don't know how misinterpretation came about. I am honored to be here, and I'm very glad that this has always been happening. Most of the times in my life, I had that if ever would have a forum that is very involving and advocates for a understanding on complexities when it comes to understanding the ideals of religion, the ethics of religion, and the morality around religion. Now, for me, being a Christian and in a Muslim country, presiding as if the president is presently idealizing or adhering to a Muslim perception, which for me, it's understandable, because it is important that we understand that we all are growing through times, and oftentimes our perception draws us close to either adhere to certain values and beliefs, or to draw some sort of an umbrella or like a coat to wear on, a form of an identity. Identifying with religion for me gives me the perception as a millennial, as a youth in my present time, as a phenomenal agent of transformation. Religion can both be as a tool for violence and as a tool for nonviolence. Religion can spur up conflict, and religion also can change or transform conflict. It depends on how actors and practitioners engage with religion. Now, the concept of religion, prehistoric time, is always engaged in often very violent and tragic engagement when it comes to enforcement of beliefs and adherence to faith. The enforcement of beliefs and adherence to faith often come at a point of submission and subservientness. Now, being subservient to a religion doesn't necessarily gives you the identity to be independent. There needs to be an intertwining or interlinking between being independent in religion and still believing in religion itself. Being a minority, because I'm a youth, whether you like it or not, a youth at this present time is a minority. Minority in the sense that when it comes to religious participation, there is not much done globally, and we are not really inclusive. When it comes to political space, we are seen as naive and ignorant. When it comes to policies and artificial intelligence, you would observe that the statistics often see youths as often kind of biased and on care. Like we're not particularly wanting to involve in the transformation of this ideal of peace. Now, the dialogue of peace needs to change. It needs to be reshaped. Peace building is a non-violent facilitation process. It's a non-adversarial facilitation process. It comes at a point where it has to be locally owned. First of all, it has to be locally owned. if it's not locally owned and the context are not built from local experience, which are the stakeholders who are particularly involved? How does it mean that when it comes to peace matters, peace is often seen as local? But when it comes to warfare and combat and hostilities or engagements, we take that as a very superior context. Bridging the gap of superiority and inferiority when we are engaging in different tools for peace, we must be looking at concepts like trust. We must be looking at concepts like accountability. And we may also have to be looking at context such as transparency. For me, a millennial youth at this point, we all just want accountability. We're tired of the ongoing impunity when it comes to sentiments in regards to religion. Oh, I'm an adherent to this religion, so I'm sentimental when it comes to gender against inequality, violence, when it comes to violations of human rights, when it comes to misappropriation of funds, when it comes to policy control and policy appropriation and funding. I'm always sentimental because at a particular point in time, it favors the majority. The majority keeps shifting, and we must know this. Today, the global context, it could be a religious leader who adhered to Hinduism. It could be a religious leader who adhered to Catholicism. It could be a religious leader who adhered to any kind of traditional practices. But as this concept keeps changing, we must realize that beings and human beings, each and every one of us, our mind, our perception also needs to be changing, not just changing in the form of conforming to the perception of globalization, but changing in the form of accommodation and tolerance. We must learn to realize that as the world keeps evolving and the world keeps changing, people will come up with different perception. People will come up with different beliefs. People would spur up different policies at a particular time that will either provoke or escalate or aggregate our discontent. As we continue to grow and as we continue to evolve as beings, as we continue to be transformational in this era of global politics, we must realize that we need to find a balance. We need to find a balance to express more giving than preservation. Everybody wants to preserve. Academics want to preserve the ideologies of previous academics, and religious leaders often want to preserve the ideologies of their understanding of certain kind of logos that they've learned or adhered to. Now, it is important that logic and logos cannot be compared. Logos is far higher, and the divinity when it comes to the spirituality of religion is far higher than each and every one of us. There comes to me the understanding of humility. We must try to understand our context, all religion, pretext, context, scripts, or historical context, whatever it is that inform our perception. We all, I'm also speaking to the elders in this forum, me being a cultural person, I'm speaking also to the elders that we must intentively and critically look at concepts that are sensitive to certain geographical zones and geographical context, and often try not to always escalate or be sentimental or biased when it comes to delivery of content. Interreligious dialogue is supposed to foster more peace, growth, development, and harmony. But often, interreligious dialogue will be probably...
Please wrap up the presentation.
Pardon?
Please wrap up the presentation, please. Time's up already.
Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. Pardon, I didn't hear what you said.
Time is up already, so could you please wrap up the presentation? Yes, okay. Thank you.
All right. Now, to wrap up this presentation, I will just want to probably, if it's to beg or to advocate that there be more engagement locally with dialogue, because as we sit and as we dialogue, there are people in the grassroots institute and the grassroots settings that don't have access to internet. I can see that there is a form of unity and harmony going on at the global context. Can peace be seen and interreligious dialogue be also seen in the local context? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And it's also echoed the point raised by the youth that I work with in the southern part of Thailand. Or they want to trust, they want to have inclusivity and also accountability that you mentioned, very rightfully mentions about that. We can get back to you later if you have some more point. And now I can see some of the questions already in the chat box. Please continue to have your question down there in the chat box. While we move to the next presenter, in our list, we have our presenter from Indonesia, right? Apa kabar? Miss Manda Adrian, right? The screen is your Miss Manda. I saw her before. Is Miss Manda here? Maybe you should unmute yourself. I couldn't see her already. Okay. If she's not here, it's okay. We can have her later on. So we go to the next presenter. In my list here, Mr. Richard.
Dr. Mohammed, I'm here.
Yes. Okay, I can see you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
okay,
you.
I
right
will
now.
try. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone here, everywhere you are. I wish I can present in 5 minutes without any disturbing by my connection.
I still cannot see your. Okay.
Is the PowerPoint available? I will share my PowerPoint, but the committee will share it for us.
Okay. Okay, I can see the screen right now, your presentation. You can start now, please.
I cannot see it. Okay, so my presentation is about cannot see. My presentation is about the role of young adults in prevent violent extremism in Indonesia. So I will take the context based in Indonesia. According to Indonesia 2009 law number 14 on youth, young people are citizens aged 18 until 30 years. It's a bit different with the UNICEF, with the UN, because UN said that the age of young people is 15 until 24, but I will refer to this age because the context is here in Indonesia. So according to the national census of 2010, there are 65 million of young people in Indonesia, representing 28% of the total population of 238 million. The challenge that young people face in Indonesia are like lack of nationalism, health, education, economic opportunity, technology, and internet, citizenship, safety, and security. This thing I will explain in my next slide. What is violent extremism? Violent extremists describe the belief and action of people who support or use violence to achieve ideological, religious, or political goals. These include terrorism, other forms of politically motivated violence, and some form of communal violence. All forms of violent extremism, no matter what their motivation, seeks change through fear and intimidation rather than constructive democratic processes. Reason to violence extremism, there are several factors that push you to join violent extremism group. They include poverty, unemployment, financial inducement from violent extremism group, ignorance, inequality, climate change, illiteracy, lack of opportunities, misuse of religion and religious ideology, and others. All forms of violence, no matter what their motivation, sorry. Lack of social and political justice, bad governance, wrong interpretation of Quran, forced recruitment, and the lack of funds to bribe government officials to get employment. Reason to violent extremism, the 40-odd pesantren or Islamic school affiliated to extremism group Jamaah Islamiyah certainly foster radicalization, but the literature differs on the role of the majority pesantren. Some of universities, however, are seen as targeted by extremists with success evident from rising conservative ideology among students and the involvement of students or alumni in violent extremism. Perception of life and values come to many illiterate youth from the content of misinterpret the Quran. Their tactics include misinterpretation of the Quran and exposing extremism ideology. Besides of that, online radicalization is significant. Particularly, ISIS has targeted Indonesian in its online propaganda and reinforced radicalization through pesantren and in-person contact. Recent and returning foreign fighters also promote radicalization and recruitment. Another source of recruitment to violent extremist group is through family structures. Family members are also target of recruitment by other family members who are already involved with extremism group. Young people who don't feel accepted or integrated in mainstream society for various reasons are looking for alternative form of reconnection. Those belonging to the groups where they can experience acceptance help young people to build up self-esteem and gain respect. The main violent extremist groups operating in Indonesia are Jamaah Islamiyah, Jamaah Ansarut Daulah, and increasingly ISIS. As noted, JI has been relatively inactive since the government crackdown on the group, but it is a significant source of resources and fighters for other terror networks. ISIS has been working actively to raise its profile in Indonesia, both as a source of fighters to join in Syria and Iraq, and as an arena for extremism violence for which it has also been recruiting locally. As of December 2015, official government estimate put the number of Indonesians who had left to fight at 800, most joining ISIS, while some joined the Nusra Front Jamaah Ansarut Daulah. Jamaah Ansarut Daulah is an ISIS-linked group believed to have been formed in 2015 and involved in the January 2016 attack in Jakarta. The 2009 bombing of the Marriott Hotel in Jakarta was carried out by an 18-year-old. The May 2018 suicide attackers included 2 teenage boys aged 16 and 18, as well as 2 young children aged 9 and 12. In 2011, a series of a book bomb sent to leading Indonesian figures and bombs planned at a Chinese church in Jakarta were both conceived and designed by a group of young Indonesian Muslims suspected of being associated with ISIS.
Can you wrap up the
UNESCO
presentation?
has almost committed to the Okay, I will wrap up the presentation. My recommendation is from the government, they're supposed to allocate the budget more in education rather than
of Religions for Peace India, and I'm also part of the transition committee of Asia Pacific Interfaith Youth Network under RFP Asia. So it was a surreal, it was actually an unreal feeling that in my own country, in India, I was not allowed to, peacefully protest, and that is why I thought of doing this research. My paper, Advocating Peacefully for Civil Liberties as a Young Person Using Non-Confrontational Approaches, reflects on the Indian context. Further, I share ways in which young people can be engaged and also write about my experiences of youth engagement in the area of peace building. Moving ahead, as the pie chart shows, India is a melting pot of culture. And I've taken statistics from the Indian census of 2011, showing that there are 79.8% people who practice Hinduism, 14.23% persons who practice Islam, 2.3% practice Christianity, 1.72% people practice Sikhism, 0.7% people practice Buddhism, 0.37% practice Jainism, and there is also other faiths which comprise of a 0.67 percentage, such as Baha'i faith, Bon faith, Judaism, and other faiths as well. And there's a percentage of unaffiliated persons as well, who are not affiliated to any religions in India, which is a 0.24%. So I think this goes to show that India is a diverse country. I think Dr. Upadhyay in his keynote speech already mentioned that. He talked about Varanasi. He talked about how it is a melting pot wherein young people come and sing songs. They are in music and they do other things. Now, what we need to look at as peace builders is the potential of youth. And just to go over the potential of Indian youth, we have more than 65% of the Indian population is under the age of 35. So it's more than 50%, and 50% of this age group is below the age of 25. So it is really important to recognize this potential of young people. That as Dr. Marshall had mentioned, that we need to move from rhetoric to reality, so that young people can push for change in the present. And it's not just the young people are the future. India is very much a country of young people. And this takes us to the question: how religious is young India? Do people does young India care about religion at all? Because if we are going to be in the area of peace building and interfaith dialogue, we need to first question this fact itself. So through my paper, I researched. There was a research paper by the Pew Center for Pew Research Center, which saw religiosity increase or decrease with it saw religiosity decrease with access to education, higher income levels led to lesser levels of religiosity. But in India, that is not true. In India, with multiple surveys, the most recent being in 2019, it's seen that religiosity has increased with age. It didn't matter also if you were from a higher income group or a lower income group, your religiosity did increase. Further, it transcended the class divide, since it's a big fact that even between people who are from lower income groups or from higher income groups, it doesn't matter. India is a theistic society, and that is a very important fact, and that's what plays into the politics of India as well. And moving ahead, to better understand the Indian context, we need to understand where we are at, right? And I think it's been mentioned before by a couple of other speakers. I think my friend from Nigeria, who had mentioned that the change needs to be local, and I completely agree with that as well. The change needs to start from within, right? Our status as an Indian nation. I'm sharing my screen and I'm showing a report by Freedom House, which is one of the oldest agencies which looks at democratic processes. And India has been termed partly free under the current political regime. And this status change to partly free is because we have a Hindu nationalist government, and there have been cases of rising violence and a lot of discriminatory policies affecting people of all religions. It says Muslim, but it affects everyone. It's not just the Muslim population. It affects the migrant workers. It affects the women. It affects the disabled people. It affects everyone. And that is something that we need to understand the Indian context and then devise interventions. Because currently, if we confront the government, there are very high chances that it would not lead to too much of constructive change. So coming to constructive change, we had run a series on sustainable development goals, wherein we had covered about 9 sustainable development goals, and talked about rights, and tried to give the best possible information to young people in India about sustainable development goals, about their rights, and how they can work on creating their own initiatives. And we've also done a couple of more physically intensive activities, such as tree planting, and with the support of the APIAN as well. And through this work, I have realized that when we are working with young people, co-leadership, ownership, and the facilitation style of taking young people from what they know to what they don't know is really important. From this, what I mean to say is that nobody likes to be taught, right? If we can make a space of empathy where young people already know certain things, they have their own identities. Dr. Marshall had said that there are multiple identities that young people have. So take them from what they know to what they don't know, and support them in that process. Further, young people are wary of adult governance. They tend to dismiss, they tend to rebel those who tell them what to do. I think me being a young person, also I do the same. And I would like to again take the opportunity to thank the senior leadership of RFP India, who have always supported me. And I myself have seen when I'm working with young students that it is important to let them explore and experience the change, not tell them and provide them with easy and quick solutions. Only when they will try new things, only when they will possibly fail, will they learn, right? Another important, I don't know what's happening with my screen, but but it is important that we build self-esteem of young people, because unless they grow internally, they're not going to be feeling confident enough to engage and impact others. So we need to have cyclic peer-to-peer engagement with young people. I think APIAN has been doing that with its youth peace camps. And I know for a fact that even though it was 8 hours of workshops back to back, but it really made an impact, and it's given me the confidence to go and do a lot of things that I've done in India. Further, incentives can be, I'm just about wrapping up, I just have these 2 points. Incentives can be given to young people, but I've seen that certificates or funding or grants do help with getting young people to work, as students and young professionals definitely would want that in for career advancement and whatnot. But incentivized uh, uh, peace building work can never be something that is owned by the people. If we hear the voices of young people, if we what this forum is doing, it's inviting papers, right? It's taking into account what young people want to say. It's going to publish what they're saying, and it's going to take it to the people. So it's really important to involve young people in the process and planning of an initiative. Lastly, just to maintain the longevity of the movement, since peace work is an ongoing process, I think RFP is already doing it. It is that leadership emerge from within the youth group. And with that, I think I would end my presentation. And thank you again to the moderator, and thank you to all the other dignitaries and contributors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shamir. Very interesting point that you have, and also for the insightful, how do you feel about this whole thing, that how they can be engaged more into this process of peace building. So we have our last speaker, Mr. Ridwan Ullah from Bangladesh. He'll be sharing his the perspective on Islamic perspective on youth engagement with religion, so we can learn from Bangladesh whether it's what's going on in situation there, and how we can enhance more, what are the challenges that youth face in engage with religion for peace building. So Mr. Ridwan, the screen is yours. I saw him briefly before.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Why? My video is on now.
Okay, I can see you right now. Okay, please.
Okay, thank you. Honorable keynote speakers, especially my beloved His Excellency Taha Ayhan, President of ICOIF, contributors, participants, audience, dear beloved moderator, and all organizing institutions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Muhammad Ridwanullah, a teacher at Shahid Birottom Lieutenant Anwar Girls College, Dhaka, Cantonment, Bangladesh. Very excited to be engaged with this grand symposium organizing on the agenda of youth engagement with religion and faith in the 21st century. Due to time limitations, I would like to present the compendium of my paper very shortly. This research work analyzed youth engagement with religion for global peace in the 21st century and Islamic perspective. I have focused on relevance of faith in youth engagement for global peace in 21st century. Because the harsh reality of the 21st century, the era of extreme excellence in information technology, is that the people don't care about man-made laws all over the world. People can be involved in injustice when they are out of sight. In any injustice is, if any injustice is organized out of the sight of the authorities, he doesn't have to face trial. On the other hand, in the eyes of Islam, man is always in the sight of Allah. So he must be accountable for any wrongdoing, whether openly or secretly. As a result of this belief, the person abstains from injustice at his own responsibility. Therefore, if the indomitable power of the youth cannot be engaged with religion and faith, then injustice will never be disappeared from the world. After studying verse number 2 of Surah Al-Ma'idah of Holy Quran and 103 and 105 of Surah Al-Imran, Hadith number 2165 of At-Tirmidhi, it became crystal clear to us that Islam punctuates youth engagement with religion and faith for building peace over the world. The four caliphs of Islam were young at the time of their acceptance of Islam, at the dangerous beginning of Islam, and they invested their best level to establish peace in the society. The paper mentioned opportunities of youth engagement with religion. Life without discipline is like a weight that without discipline. The belief in Allah guides the believers to get used to a right system. It regulates man's psychological life and refines all his emotions and behavior to achieve one goal, which is submission to Allah and a sense of his divinity. Submission to political tyranny hinders humanity from rising and prevents them from progressing, but faith frees the soul from the control of tyranny that helps to perform group works without any hypocrisy. Feeling the presence of Allah, the Almighty, a believer keeps himself away from heinous behavior. The religion accustoms believers to love the truth and hate the falsehood. Our Prophet said, "He who loves for Allah and hates for Allah and gives to Allah and withholds for Allah has completed faith." The believer embraces the doctrine of the unseen, which creates a strong chain between the servant and his Lord. Faith sanctifies its adherents from outward and inward sins. Some unique characteristics of youth engagement with religion for building peaceful world from prophetic approach, such as unparalleled leadership in Hilful Fuzul to stop Harbul Fijar when he was 20. Meditating in the cave Al-Hira to explore the eternal truth as his consciousness about stewardship and visionary cogitation. Setting black stone during rebuilding Kaaba in his 35 years old. There are many challenges to assure youth engagement with religion for global peace in the 21st century, like familial, social, economical, political, missionary, civilian challenges, and challenges in educational institutions and in media. In a nutshell, I am recommending some keynotes to implement youth engagement with religion for global peace, such as learning morality and patriotism according to the Quranic and Sunnatic injunction at every stage of personal, familial, social, cultural, economical, and political life. taking care of children from childhood and teaching them religious learning, being visionary, hyperactive, creative, and responsible in every step of youth to practice a meaningful life, being scholar for global action, contributing in decision making, achieving self-dependency, humanitarian characters, freedom from all type of addiction, and forming anti-militancy personality. Ensuring youth engagement with religion at local, national, and global level to build a resilient and sustainable peaceful world. Finally, establishing available youth clubs and decorating the club with materials, encourage the youth to learn religious teaching. In the conclusion, we say that the 21st century turbulent contemporary world is in dire need of successful leadership. The materialistic society is bound by the shackles of oppression and defeat in all aspects of life. They have lost the courage to find their way out of the darkness of dictatorial control. Young people are running after defective mirage, which will blind them in the chain of oppression day after day and give them a life of extreme humiliation and great betrayal. No one can get rid of this great oppression except by following the guidance of Muhammad, peace be upon him, in regard to youth engagement with religion. Thank you, moderator. Thank you all for listening to me. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ridwan. Very interesting to hear from Bangladesh and all the challenges that you're facing. I have seen a lot of active discussion in the chat box, and some of the questions already answered by the presenter. But there's some question that I could wrap up and then ask all of you, or the presenter, as a central question for all of you, because there's some also specific question for certain presenter, but I don't think we have time to cover that. Just to have maybe one question for all of you. They ask a lot in the chat box about the rising trend of religious nationalism and also the engagement or interaction between majority and minority in the society, and also how to engage youth in interreligious dialogue. So if you have any ideas about how to tackle this issue, religious nationalism, the kind of majority minority coexistence, and also interreligious dialogue, feel free to answer this question. I will have you 1 minute each for the presenter, 1 minute each to answer this question. Anyone can go first.
Hi, I think I'd like to contribute. Yes, with regard to religious nationalism and the rise, whether it be from around the world, the key aspect here is to promote critical understanding and analysis amongst the youth. These are narratives that are usually obviously on an extreme, and so the youth need to be equipped with these tools to decipher what is extreme and what is not, and to sort of deconstruct these narratives. And this is very important from the youth's perspective, a necessary tool, because as you said, a previous speaker had also mentioned that most of the power positions are held by older and elderly sections of the society, and so the youth is sort of absorbing these narratives, and they should know how to deal with that, and those are essential tools.
Thank you very much, Nala. Any of the presenter would like to answer the question?
Okay, I think the idea of the interreligious dialogue, how we promote the interreligious dialogue among the young people, especially the gap between the minority and majority, I think we can start from the simple one. We can start from the friendship and try to get to know each other. And speaking about the interreligious dialogue, it's not necessary about the high level of perspective from the high perspective or theologian or those people who were expert in the holy books, but it can be also start by a simple thing, like, for example, you can just visit each other when you have the national celebration, and that's how we can start the friendship and trust.
Yes, Yes, I agree with you, Amanda. Dialogue is about building trust, and later on is a platform for something else that's gonna emerge after the dialogue. So you build trust, you connect the people together, and then they can go for some collaboration in the future. Any of the speaker would like to answer the question? Yep, Shamia.
So in my experience in working with young people, we don't tackle, like I had mentioned, religion is a very hot topic in India, and we don't tackle it head on. That is something that we've realized. People become apprehensive when you mention interfaith dialogue or religion or any of these concepts, unless you're in a very small secular community where these types of dialogues happen on a regular basis. The need is that we work with those who are not they don't have the opportunity to have these dialogues. They don't have the opportunity to interact, and they might be drawn to the wrong messages, the messages of communalism and radicalization. So young people are engaged with multiple stakeholders such as family, friends, their college, through social media, they're engaged with the world. They have common issues. So again, going from what they know to what they don't know, right? So they know that they face bullying, they face many different issues with their family, with job opportunities. So giving them best information, having workshops which are application oriented, getting them together. So just an example, this thing is something that we did with young, very young kids. We got kids from different religions to just play sports together, and we just divided the teams, and it was beautiful to see how in the starting everybody was apprehensive. Okay, I don't want to pass to this guy, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. And then as soon as the first goal was hit, right, everybody was like, okay, now we need to score the goal. It doesn't matter who's there, right? We're going to pass the ball. So similarly, workshops and ideas can be developed for older people, right? Let's talk about intersectional issues such as gender, right? How is that viewed by young people, and like get them to talk about that. The dialogue is important. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Shamia. We have Jude and also Ridwan. Any final words that you would like to say before we leave the session?
Okay, thank you very much. I am honored again. What I would like to say before we leave the session would be, for peace to grow, peace building has to be a long-term facilitation process where we will have to engage each other in the building of interior mortification. And an interior mortification is in the building of communities and also pair-to-pair grooming when it comes to understanding, tolerance, and also confidence building. When we build each other in our different localities, as to say, your perception is accepted, your opinion is accepted, those little re-education or concept has to be consistent. It has to be ongoing. It doesn't have to be just a one-term phase where we have a dialogue between two groups or two pairs or two communities or two stakeholders and it stops. It's a facilitation process that is everlasting. It is a perpetual process. So until we start engaging in an interior mortification that is perpetually inclined to tolerance, compassion, and love, I think that will be difficult for us to live in peace.
Thank you very much, Jude. And Ridwan, any brief word from you? If no, I will have to end the session because the time already passed and we have another 2 more sessions coming up. Okay, so no, okay. Okay, thank you very much for your attention to this session. We have learned greatly from the 5 presenters and also from the chat box. And I hope you continue this dialogue and this discussion later on. And I would like to pass the session to our MC of the event, who will lead you to the next session on environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suphamit.